long it takes you to get back to a full crescendo of chatter. I'm guessing it's not going to take long. As long as you all have coffee, you should be good. So I'm going to ask you, first of all, thanks for joining us. If I have not had the pleasure of meeting you, or if I didn't get a chance to see you at the front, hopefully I'll be able to get to see you on your way out today. But my name is Chris McCracken, and I get the pleasure of serving as the CEO for Manchester Community Health Center and Child Health Services. Thank you all. So glad to have you out for our 12th annual breakfast. And we owe a whole lot of thanks to a bunch of people in this room, our staff, our board members, volunteers, longtime supporters who do a lot of work to pull this together, and we're always glad to see your smiling faces every year. Thank you for your continued support. Please take a few minutes to enjoy your breakfast and your colleagues and your friends. You can feel free to mill about and say hi if you want, but at least have a bite to eat, and we'll start our program in about 15 to 20 minutes. Thank you.
I am the Executive Director of the Manchester Historic Association, and it is my pleasure to be here as your Master of Ceremonies this morning, which came as a surprise to me, by the way. Originally, my very close personal friend Mike Morin was asked if he would serve as Master of Ceremonies. If you don't know Mike, he is the incredibly charming and talented host who worked at WZID for many years until he retired 4 years ago. Apparently, Mike is unretired. He was recently asked to take over at Frank 106.3 FM, one of Bill Binney's stations. So while he should be here, he is now working, hopefully talking about the Morning Matters breakfast on the airwaves. So Mike, I have one suggestion for you. Either retire or don't retire. I clearly need my beauty rest, and this is not helping me this morning. You all look fabulous, by the way, so I'll tell you that. So we do want to thank you for coming, and there are so many people who have contributed to this event. In particular, our keynote sponsor, whose generous support makes this possible, People's United Bank. You'll hear from my very close personal friend Diane Mercier in a little bit. But our generous program sponsors include, again, People's United Bank, AmeriHealth Caritas, CGI Business Solutions, Dan Cronin is here, Dartmouth Hitchcock, Harbor Group, Mutual of America, and New Hampshire Healthy Families. And at the advocate sponsorship level, we have Citizens Bank, Clark Insurance, Eldridge Investment Advisors, Elliott Health System, Eversource Energy. I saw Caitlin Woods here in the room. LaValle Brensinger Architects, Lindner Dental Associates, Dr. Gary Lindner is here. Southern New Hampshire University, Patty Lynott is here in the room, and WellSense Health Plan. So please, could we have a hand for our sponsors? We also want to give a warm thank you to all of the sponsors and table sponsors. Look at the barrier that's separating you from your table mates, and you'll know who our table sponsors were. That's the billboard treatment. Thanks to all the advertisers in the program book. Please take a moment to look through, and if you would patronize the advertisers who helped sponsor this event, that would be great. And a special thank you to Katie Cole of KC Portraits. Katie, where are you? Raise your hand. In the back of the room. If you see her approaching with your camera, put on your best smile. Diane Mercier recommends you take off your name tag. It detracts from the photograph. So I always take advice from Diane when I can. I would also like to extend a heartfelt thanks to the volunteer members of the Morning Matters Committee. The chair of that committee has organized this event for 12 years, Judith Jolton. I just love it when I can embarrass Judith early in the morning. It's quite and she was joined by Elizabeth Ashew. Raise your hand. Helen Cormier. Helen. And I know Joanne Gustafson is here. Joanne, where are you? Hey. You're going to hear an awful lot this morning about collaboration amongst nonprofits, for-profits, government agencies, and individuals in Manchester. You know, we are a large city by some scales, but we're also a small town by other measures. It's what Manchester was built on, neighbors looking out for neighbors. I'd like to acknowledge at this time the presence of several government representatives from our federal delegation. Rebecca Rocheleau from Senator Maggie Hassan's office. Rebecca. Chris Scott from Senator Jean Shaheen's office. Chris, stay at my table. And Christian Seaschultz from Congressman Chris Pappas's office. And a late arrival from Governor Chris Sununu's office, Shannon Desolette. Shannon? At this time, I am going to present a certificate of appreciation to a community leader who is at the helm of the organization that is our keynote sponsor today, that being People's United Bank, and that person being the aforementioned Diane Mercier. Where's Casey? You want to come all the way up here for this? Diane Mercier, ladies and gentlemen.
Good morning, everybody, Mayor, Chief, Justice. It's nice to see you, friends, everybody. Welcome. The reason that we're here, I was asked to tell you why we're here, but I don't have to say that because John just told you why we're all here. We're just neighbors helping neighbors, and it's a real pleasure to be here. I paid up big to be here because I get to introduce our keynote speaker. So let me tell you a little bit about him. In September of 2018, Nick Willard was named the United States Marshal for the District of New Hampshire. But let's among other Nick's other qualities, he's an extremely humble man. But seriously, what he really is he's America's Marshal, right? Nick, is that what you are? You're America's Marshal. But he earned that appointment following a very distinguished career in law enforcement. 29 years as a local police officer and 4 years in the United States Air Force as a security police officer. Thank you for that service. So Nick joined the Manchester Police Department in 1992 before many of you here were born. He held every rank within the department, spending a considerable amount of time as a detective and a detective supervisor. As a detective lieutenant, he was the lead investigator of the line-of-duty murder of Officer Michael Briggs, which led to the capital murder conviction and the death sentence for the perpetrator. As a captain and investigative division commander, he attended the FBI National Academy, Session 247, and was chosen by his classmates as the session president and spokesperson. Marshal Willard completed his career at the Manchester Police Department as the Chief of Police. Thank you so much. And during that time, he innovated programs such as the Adverse Childhood Experience Response Team, Beards for Bucks, I'm sure there's a story there, campaign in support of the Child Advocacy Center, and the Family Justice Center, to name just a few. Marshal Willard also used predictive analytics to drive down the crime rate in each of his 3 years as police chief in Manchester. Now, as the U.S. Marshal, he is actively promoting the U.S. Marshal's Fugitive Task Force throughout the state of New Hampshire. This program assists in the location and apprehension of fugitives throughout the state, county, and, yes, the world. Additionally, Marshal Willard ensures that the deputy U.S. Marshals and task force officers in New Hampshire are constantly enhancing their capabilities through training, equipment, and manpower to enhance preparedness for officer safety. It is with the greatest gratitude for his leadership in our community and others, and the safety that is his priority, that I introduce to you my friend, U.S. Marshal Nick Willard.
Yeah, I'm pretty cool. Before I start, pipe down, ladies. But before I start, I would like to acknowledge some Manchester police officers that are in the room. I see a few of them there, as well as Chief Capano. The greatest honor of my entire professional career was serving alongside each and every one of these individuals and all the members of the Manchester Police Department, so I'm eternally grateful. Chief Justice is here, and now I'm wicked nervous. Sir, great to see you. But good morning, and thank everyone for being here, and the Manchester Community Health Center for asking me to speak on issues and opportunities that are near and dear to my heart. The very day I was sworn in as a police officer, to my very last day, 29 years later, I always approached the job from the place that I came from, my childhood. My childhood would stay forever imprinted in me and would guide me to do all I could as a police officer to ensure that children who were present at calls that I went to, that I would be kind to them, considerate of them, acknowledge them, value them, carefully choosing my words while always being mindful of my physical presence. It's pretty daunting for a child who just experienced some sort of violent episode in their home to have this hulking police, well, not hulking, but to have this police officer, standing over them. It's intimidating. And I was always mindful of my physical presence as well as the way I behaved and carried myself. See, I had a hard scrabble life as a kid growing up, where police responded to my home often. Abuse, abandonment, neglect, domestic violence, alcoholism, and the shame that kids feel, whether you realize it or not, of living in abject poverty. As I said, my childhood has been forever imprinted on me, with one particular reoccurring police response in which they were always coming to my home because my father would be abusing my mother. One particular time, a police officer had all 8 of us kids, me and my 7 brothers and sisters, line up on the couch while the other officer was dealing with my parents who were in the throes of a heated argument. As we watched on, my dad was told to leave and walk it off, and he would. And the officer would tell my mom to stop upsetting my father and you wouldn't be abused. So as us kids watched on, we were experiencing that toxic stress that I'm going to talk about a little bit later. But as the officers would leave without so much acknowledging us kids, not even being concerned of the bruises that some of us bore, I heard one officer say to the other officer, "These kids don't stand a chance." Frankly, I don't blame those officers today. I get it now. I understand. After being 29 years of a police officer, the experiences that officers face become frustration. But I did not understand it as a boy. I hated it, I resented it, and it only added to the shame I was already feeling within myself. But I went on and I performed my job as a copper from a prison where children mattered to me. So when I was named the police chief in July 1 of 2015, and by the grace of God, I had Chief Capano as my assistant, and I was now in a position that I could perform my duties not just from my personal beliefs and values, but I could somehow try to, I hoped, instill that concern, compassion, and consideration for children at scenes into the rest of the department. How I was going to do that, I had no idea, but I understood I had a pretty cool opportunity that now I'm leading an organization. And if they could see what's important to the police chief, maybe they would adopt some of those values. So I rose through the ranks and eventually became police chief, because I'm pretty cool. And all the while, I found myself thinking the same thing that I heard from my childhood. These kids don't stand a chance. I was no different than those officers. The difference in me, though, is I never said it in front of the children. And I tried to at least leave them with a shred of compassion as I went on to the next call. But it felt wrong, and I felt hopeless, and it wasn't the way I wanted to feel about the very kids that I was serving. They deserved better. But as police chief, I felt like I could somehow have the power to make change happen. And more importantly, I had leadership within the agency that shared my compassion and care for children. Again, with Chief Capano by my side. Then, Sergeant Paul Thompson brought forward some exciting work. This is in my first week. He's now a lieutenant, but then Sergeant Paul Thompson brought forward some exciting work that was being done in Manchester, led by the Manchester Community Health Center. And from Sergeant Thompson's initial research, coupled with the hard work of Lieutenant Nicola Dew, and the unyielding support of Captain Sean Layton, and again, Assistant Chief Capano, the Manchester Police Department was going to fundamentally change the way we view children who are suffering the toxic stress that occurs in nearly every single police response. Be it a domestic violence situation, be it an overdose in front of the children of a mother or a father, or even a SWAT raid, like that picture there. when a child is in the home. The work Lieutenant Thompson identified, Project Launch, was focused on helping children and families in Manchester by building capabilities or capacities of adult caregivers to promote children's healthy social and emotional development, to prevent mental, emotional, and behavioral disorders, and to identify and address behavioral concerns before they developed into serious emotional disturbances. It also focused on building collaborations among child and family serving organizations in our community, which is paramount. So we reached out to Project Launch. About a week after I started as chief, we had our first meeting with Laura Kyoga. I had to ask her how to pronounce that. Kyoga, right? I'm sorry, I gotta be serious. She's the Director of Strategic Initiatives for Children from Project Launch at the Manchester Community Health Center. And at that meeting, we learned about adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs. A growing body of research brought to light that ACEs are a critical public health issue. ACEs is the term used to describe all types of abuse, neglect, or other potentially traumatic experiences that occur to children. Studies show that the more ACEs a child has, the greater their risk and the more daunting their future. Children who have experienced ACEs are more likely to struggle in school, have emotional and behavioral challenges. Negative outcomes associated with ACEs include Manchester's growing health issues, alcoholism, substance abuse and misuse, depression, suicide, poor physical health, and even obesity. Other health-related problems, as well as academic and cognitive challenges, delinquency, and involvement in child welfare and juvenile justice systems are also associated with experiencing trauma. There's also some evidence that ACEs are linked to lower educational attainment, unemployment, and poverty. So I took the ACEs test, and I scored 9 out of 10. 98% of people like me suffer all the ills I just mentioned. I am an outlier though, because somewhere along the line in my life, there was some sort of intervention. Whether it's the Boys and Girls Club, whether it was a beat cop that was nothing like the cop that would come into my home, or whether or not it was a basketball coach. Somewhere along the line, each one of those people showed me that I had value, that I mattered, and that I should not be ashamed of the circumstances from which I live. Perhaps just showing a shred of compassion to a child at a traumatic call for service will be a moment in which the trajectory of that child could change for the better. Adverse childhood experiences result in exponentially increased risk of medical, mental, and social problems as an adult. And failing to address the trauma children experiences is setting them up to fail, not giving them a chance. But there is good news. The research shows that that these poor outcomes can be prevented if children and their caregivers have nurturing, responsive relationships, and if families are connected to the right services to mitigate the negative impacts of exposure to ACEs. Children's healthy development provides a strong foundation for healthy and competent adulthood, responsible citizenship, economic productivity, and a thriving community. So at the meeting with Laura, we also talked about the police department and what we were seeing. In 2014, we reviewed our data and found that more than 400 children had been exposed to domestic violence. That's just one call. That's one call for service, domestic violence. Not a child witnessing an overdose, not a child experiencing any other sort of trauma in the home or perhaps they're being abused. This is just domestic violence in the home in which children were present when it occurred. 400 kids. Following these incidences, the adult victims and the perpetrators received advocacy services or interventions of some kind. None of the more than 400 children received advocacy, referral, or any other compassionate means to help them navigate the stress they just occurred to them. So think 400 kids were invisible to the system. They didn't exist. They didn't matter. We go, we take the call, we lock up pop, we leave. The child is left to cope with what they just experienced. The father gets services, gets an attorney, the mother gets advocacy, she's helped through the system, through the advocates, the child gets nothing. Sadly, we were seeing children who had watched loved ones collapse in front of them from an overdose, or a parent getting arrested for domestic violence. And our hands were tied to provide them with more than a brochure a phone number, or to call Child Protective Services. So these 400 children at least have one ACE, one, we know, because they just witnessed violence in the home. And I can guarantee you they're going to top out with a minimum of 8. I've been to enough calls to know. So we're now pointing them down the roads towards poor mental health and behavioral outcomes. The police department, frankly, is not equipped with the tools that other agencies have to help children and families in time in need of services. Connecting with Project Launch and its well-established collaborative partners made absolute sense. In short order, we pulled together community partners. Many of them are here today, including the YWCA, Southern New Hampshire Services, CREATE, the Division for Child, Youth, and Family Services, Easter Seals, New Hampshire, the Mental Health Center of Greater Manchester, Waypoint, Manchester Health Department, Elliott Hospital, the Moore Center, the Manchester School District, and so many others. And I apologize if I'm not ticking off your name. But everything that you do to help us in this collaboration, I'm eternally grateful for. We put our heads together to figure out what could we do. Our first moments were around the challenges of brochures. We were all tired of handing out brochures to the family and hoping that the family would call us back. It would be great if we could somehow come up with something to facilitate some sort of willingness of the family to participate. So what we did is we created a release form that patrol officers would carry with them, and if they came across a situation where a child was exposed to something traumatic, such as domestic violence or an overdose, the officer could then ask the parent to sign a release, giving the police department permission to share the information about the incident with the appropriate community agencies. That agency could then directly call the family and start intake services. The release idea worked, but only at first. In the first 2 weeks of using it back in October of 2015, we had about 20 releases signed and referrals made. But then it sort of fizzled out, like everything does when you're trying to do a new initiative. We had done the right thing in coming together as collaborative partners, identifying the needs of our community and trying something to address it. We quickly learned, however, that we had identified a simple solution to a complex problem, and we needed a more proactive approach to engage families. We needed positive interactions and human connections, not just a paper shuffle. So the police department, the Manchester Community Health Center, and the YWCA met again. We talked about what other communities in the United States were doing to connect children with services, but none of them seemed to fit our needs here in Manchester, and our vision to address adverse childhood experiences and prevent later poor health and behavioral outcomes. Nobody in the country was looking at it as we were. So after more research and discussion, we had an idea of a new kind of team. The police have experience working as part of teams for intervention when a crime has been committed. For example, the domestic assault response team and our sexual assault response team. So the police department is good at having teams responding to victims. So this was about prevention and children. We needed to put the same energy into addressing the needs of children who are at risk that we put into treating adults battling addiction, committing crimes, or suffering from direct victimization at the hands of somebody else. We created a team made up of a police officer, a crisis service advocate, and a community health worker. The team would respond to incidents in which children were exposed to trauma as soon as the scene had been secured by the officers who had responded to the call. Police officers at the scene would continue to offer parents the release form for the program, but the team would assess the situation and determine next steps in real time that could be taken for the children, such as support groups, mental health counseling, early childhood education, or child-parent psychotherapy. The concept of the Adverse Childhood Experience Response Team, or ACERT, was then born. The Manchester Community Health Center applied for funding to the New Hampshire Health Foundation in May of 2016. We received funding to support the team operations and training for the next 3 years. In June of 2016, we brought together 45 ACERT staff from the police department, the Manchester Community Health Center, and the YWCA, and trained them in adverse childhood experiences and trauma-informed services, an approach which attends to victims and survivors, emotional and physical needs, as well as ensures that they have access to advocacy services that are nurturing, destigmatizing, and non-re-traumatizing. So, July 7th, 2016, just 2 days shy of the 1-year anniversary of our meeting, we launched ACER. I was waiting for Adele to start the clap, but she didn't get my cue. So the team goes out 2 nights per week to respond to live calls or to follow up on previous incidents. That same release form that we started with is still an instrumental piece of our collaboration that allows us to appropriately share information and connect families to services. ACER is responding to a variety of incidences in which children are exposed to trauma, domestic violence, overdoses, sexual assault, suicide attempts, and swap rates. As you saw in the picture, we go to a SWAT call. We certainly try to do everything that we can when we're breaking into somebody's home to make an arrest and shut down the drug house, to get the information to ensure that children are not in the home. The last thing we want is for us to do a dynamic SWAT raid of an address with a child in the home. So picture that little boy and the services that he was provided instantaneously that day, and how just in that moment we're already starting to change the trajectory of that child because of not just the conditions he'd been living in that prompted us to raid the home, but also to work through what it meant, what he just went through when a flashbang is set off outside the window and then the door is taken off its hinges, where the police officers have to go in there in a dynamic fashion because these are dangerous individuals. That little boy got services in real time. ACER has been accomplishing what we hoped it would, and after nearly 3 years, ACER has responded to more than 1,400 calls for assistance with families of children who have been exposed to trauma, abuse, or violence. The team has deployed over 250 times and referred more than 3,000 children of all ages to services. I'm sorry, 1,000 people. There's 1,000 children that were otherwise invisible just 3 short years ago. Today, they matter. Today, they're getting help. And when I say invisible, they were invisible. I know what it's like to be invisible at a call for service when the police show up. So today I'm happy to watch ACER expanding under the steadfast leadership of Chief Carlo Capano and the enthusiastic support of Mayor Craig. Communities in New Hampshire and other states are now working to replicate ACER, and I think you'll see it in Laconia and Concord next. They have applied for funding to sustain the team. The funding will help the team expand in Manchester as well. The funding will also expand to the Manchester Fire Department and American Medical Response and safe stations. Police officers, firefighters, just like police officers, often go to these calls where children are present and police aren't responding. So the same goes for what they're seeing and what the children are experiencing when a police officer or AMR the fire department or AMR come to the home because mom or dad just took an overdose and collapsed. Pretty traumatizing. So they're going to do the same thing that we are doing. These organizations are seeing situations in families that police don't necessarily encounter. ACER will double the number of shifts per week. ACER will provide training to all of its first responders and trauma-informed services, and we realize that with connecting to more children and families means that to our communities, such as the Mental Health Center, Waypoint, Create, Upreach, and Equine Therapy, could face capacity issues. So these social services that we're referring kids to, like the equine therapy, is just fantastic. But they're going to get to capacity the more children that we send their way. So therapy could face capacity issues, so we're ensuring that they have additional resources to continue offering services and meet the needs of the community. We're also connecting with the Manchester School District, helping administration become trauma-informed, providing consultation to teachers to ensure that they're supporting children appropriately after experiencing a trauma. So a child comes to school and his hair is a mess, and he's dour and he's sullen. You know, a teacher now knows, well, I know last night there was a pretty bad domestic at the home. And now they have a mindset. They have an understanding of what that child is dealing with. And then they, just by the way they treat them, again, they're giving these kids services. As you go along in life, a child that's living with these ACEs, every single moment that's kind, caring, compassionate, considerate, that weaves the child to become a completely different person, so long as it continues and is continuous. So having teachers know what happened to a child at their home last night, and the parents being okay with that information being released, I think it's just outstanding. Community collaborations are what it takes to address the challenges facing the most precious and vulnerable among us. Collaboration is the best mechanism we have to change the trajectory of children's lives. Through collaboration, we are able to provide early intervention to the entire family following a violent or traumatic event, significantly improving the child and the family's potential to succeed. If we truly want to change the outcome of our vulnerable children, we must work together. Everybody in this room. Together we can change the outcome of our kids because we can help them and the adults in their lives to have access to necessary medical, developmental, and educational resources. Our collaboration worked because we created a shared vision and plan among a variety of community members and sectors. Everyone's egos were left at the door. It allowed us to identify and implement needed services to better address the needs of children and families. It enhanced our relationship with each other and increased positive interactions with family. This worked, and all of our collaboration worked because we came together as a community. We were one. It's an exciting partnership between the public and private sectors that help children function better in school and make Manchester a better place to live. The Manchester Community Health Center, Manchester Police Department, the YWCA, and all of our community partners formed a strong team. We figured out that strong agency collaborations, cross-sector partnerships, training in ACEs, and trauma-informed services were the levers we could use to make changes we would want to see. We knew that if we could respond to families in crisis and link them to services and opportunities, that we would be building protective factors such as parental resilience and knowing where to go with concrete support in times of need. And in the end, we are building stronger and more resilient families. We are mitigating the effects of ACEs, and our kids do stand a chance. These kids don't stand a chance. And may there never be a moment when a police officer feels that in his heart, or utter those words, certainly not in the presence of a child. Thank you.
We have a very small token of appreciation for Nick, which you have to open right now.
Can I just say one thing real quick? Does everybody see the tie? I got the socks to match.
Van Gogh. Gift of his leadership Manchester classmates, I would like to point out, of which I am one. Natalie Jutras is here, Anne-Marie Hayes-Hafman is here. So yeah, it was quite an experience. If you can imagine Nick and me saddled with the same group of 40 people.
Oh. Very nice.
What is it?
It's a book.
Right.
I mean, I wasn't a very good detective, but I could figure this one out. It's by John Clayton, and it's Remembering Manchester. And he used my real name, which is really sweet. Seriously, Enoch is my real name. He says, the king of the Queen City. Let me just say before I leave, two things. Well, one thing. I know I talked about my family. I talked about my father. May he rest in peace. But I reconciled with my father probably 13 years before he died, and he became my absolute best friend in life. I wear his ring every day, and this is his pocket square. Thank you, guys.
It wasn't my idea. Blame Rhonda Bernstein. But what do you get from the guy who has everything, really? Including subpoena power. So. Speaking as the son and grandson of Manchester police officers, I'd like to reiterate Nick's call for thanks for those men and women who are with us today and who wear the uniform of the Manchester Police Department. Since I'm all about history, it occurs to me that just over a year ago I was standing in approximately the same position for a very special occasion. Manchester, for the first time in 180 years, had elected a female mayor. So imagine my great joy at being asked to serve as Master of Ceremonies for the inauguration of Mayor Joyce Craig. And guess what? It's my turn to introduce Mayor Joyce Craig once again. Joyce?
Good morning. It's great to be here with all of you. And John, thanks so much for proving you are the Queen City's best MC. And Chief Willard, it's such a pleasure to have you back in Manchester. I just want to thank you so much for sharing your personal story and sharing stories of what our first responders are dealing with on a daily basis, thanking them for what they do and for thinking about where our students are and where our children are in our community today and coming up with effective programs to help them lead successful lives. And thank all of you for being here today. All of the proceeds for this breakfast go directly toward medical care for more than 5,000 children in the greater Manchester area. That includes family supports, interpretation, transportation, and so much more. We are truly a community where neighbor supports neighbor, as you've heard many times today. Which brings me to Bernadette Clark. Bernadette is a native of the Virgin Islands. She and her two sons relocated to New Hampshire following the devastation of Hurricane Maria in 2017. Bernadette holds a bachelor's degree in business administration and management from American Intercontinental University and a master's degree in human resources management. In the Virgin Islands, she worked for the Bureau of Corrections as the Territorial Human Resources Manager. Bernadette is the mother of 2 boys and a passionate community volunteer. She lives her life believing that the good you put out through words and actions comes back to you for a greater purpose. Bernadette is a volunteer with the National Guard's Family Resource Center. She is committed to community service through her Zeta sorority. She prepares meals for the homeless and volunteers at her son's school. It is my great pleasure now to introduce Bernadette Clark from Manchester.
Pleasant good morning, everyone. Thank you very much. I feel honored to be introduced by our first female mayor. So I was told that I was going to speak at this event. I was nervous. She said, you have 5 minutes. I said, okay. I was going to write a whole speech, but then I decided that I won't do that. I would just speak from the heart, because everything that I've received thus far has been from the heart. You know, so that's what I decided to do this morning. So before we get started, I just want you to take the opportunity to turn to the person next to you, shake hands, and say thank you. Well, as a team-oriented individual, I am a strong believer that together everyone achieves more. Today is a great example of that. Appreciation can be defined as an increase in the value of an asset over time. Appreciation builds a strong company culture and strong relationships. I appreciate everyone in this room. Today, it's both an honor and pleasure for me to stand here and tell my story of the greatness experienced through the Manchester Community Health Center and Child Health Services. Never in my wildest dreams would I have imagined that I would be here in Manchester, New Hampshire, trading in my tank tops, 365 days of sun, sand, and sea for winter boots, shoveling, snow, and the daily question is, what is the temperature today? Is it cold outside? Can I wear flip-flops? Never. But life happens. In September 2017, the Virgin Islands were struck by not only one, but two Category 5 hurricanes in a matter of 12 days. Little did I know that our lives would change forever. Putting all my fears and faith in God, my kids and I boarded a Mercy flight that was headed not to Manchester, but to Atlanta. Then we were told that wherever the flight is going, that's where we stop, and you have to find your way to wherever you're going. I was clueless, but I knew I needed to get out of there because with being devastated with a Category 5 hurricane, no power, no water, no communication, with a 19-year-old and a 13-year-old special needs child in a wheelchair, that was a decision that I had to make at the spur of a moment. We had no idea when we were going to leave, but we knew it was going to happen. So at midnight, a friend of mine came to my house and said, listen, we heard your name is on the list, so you have to be at the airport at 7 o'clock in the morning. It's midnight, no power, no water. We have to be there at 7 o'clock in the morning. We did what we had to do, packed what we can, got to the airport, 7 o'clock in the morning, no idea or clue what was going to happen. So we got to the airport, 300 other people at the airport with their bags. Now I'm even more confused because it's like, no plane, 300 other people, when are we gonna get on? There was a list that was compiled, and we went around asking questions, and they said, if your name's on the list, then you move to this side and you're going to be on the next flight that comes in. Luckily, our name was on the list, so we were excited. Yay! We never left the Virgin Islands, we never left St. Croix until 6 p.m. that evening. So we camped out on the airport. Not a worry, because we know I was getting out of there with my kids because I needed to. Then we got to Atlanta, no idea, no clue how we were going to get from Atlanta, but we knew we had to get off the island. Because of my strong faith and belief, we went, got to Atlanta, met some folks from a church that knew of the situation, knew that there were Mercy flights coming in, and they were there, prepared to welcome us, take care of us. Okay, we got there. They took us in, said, hey, come on, let's go. I'm like, I don't know these people from anywhere. Scared, I'm like, supposed to like kidnap us, or, I mean, I have no idea. And I'm looking around, and we're the only ones that are leaving with these people on the bus. So I was like, oh my God. What are we gonna do? So I was like, start taking pictures and stuff. Hey, you know, just in case we go missing, somebody saw us, you know? So they took us on the bus. We went to this place. They took us to a church. I was like, what? We're sleeping in a church? Oh my God, this is really crazy. But with all that being said and done, they took really good care of my family and I. They provided for us to ask us, where's our final destination? Where are we going? I said, well, my family lives in Manchester, New Hampshire. And they was like, what? I mean, are you serious? You know how cold it is over there? I was like, well, I have a choice. Freeze my butt off, or have my kids go through the unknown in the Virgin Islands because of the hurricane. They said, no worries. So they took care of us. They booked our flights and shipped us off the next day. So here we are in Manchester, New Hampshire. Have no idea again what's gonna happen. Got here, it's like, I'm happy to be here, but I'm like, I'm cold. I have no idea what's gonna happen. We started looking for schools because my son, my 13-year-old who has cerebral palsy, needed to, you know, get into school and get the programs going and everything. The first school we went to, they said, yeah, we're special needs, but we can't take him because he's in a wheelchair, so he needs a different level of care. So they pushed us on to McLaughlin Middle School. Got to McLaughlin Middle School, I was so amazed. They were the greatest bunch of people that you would ever find. So they started talking, and I didn't have his IEP because of the hurricane and everything like that. They said, don't worry, we'll take care of that. We'll just get him going, get everything. We started talking about his needs, healthcare, everything. Then she said, oh, I know this great doctor. She does special needs, Dr. DeBrigida. I said, awesome, okay, great. Can we get in? She's like, well, I don't know. You have to call call because, she's booked up. Great, okay, she gave us the number, we called, they were like, Dr. DeBrigida is completely booked, she's not taking any new patients, but leave your name and number. We did leave our name and number. Then Manchester Community Health Center gave us an appointment for another doctor. So I was like, man, I really want Dr. DeBrigida. Lo and behold, never met her before, just heard really great things about her and Child Health Services. So lo and behold, I got a call. Child Health Services, gave us the appointment. I was like, oh man, yes, great. So finally we got in October to see Dr. DeBrigida. I walked into the room and it was like a complete calm. She came in the room and said, hey, good morning, everybody. Hi, how are you? Oh my God, your son. And she started talking and I was like, whoa, what's going on? She just embraced him like she knew him, and automatically he reached out and he hugged her. And that warmed my heart because he doesn't take to every single person. So automatically I knew that what we were receiving was from the heart. After we got talking, she asked, a little bit about his history and everything like that. Right in the middle of finishing what I was telling her about it, she said, stop, wait. She leaves the room, comes back with a whole set of people. I was like, what? And everybody's like, what do you need? How old is he? This, and everybody just started talking. And from there, that's where it started. So it automatically warmed my heart and took me back to the old saying that goes, it takes a village to raise a child. Because as soon as I walked in the room, Dr. DeBrigida got her village members to come in and start taking care of me and my son. And from there, that's where it started. I have never, ever had a bad moment at Child Health Services. I met Ann Burgess from Special Medical Services, and everybody here have kids, right? Grandkids? Have you ever seen the cartoon Fairly Odd Parents? Wanda, Cosmo. So it's almost the same thing like Wanda. Right here, she's amazing. Anything that you need, you just say, hey Ann, I'm having a problem. Oh, don't worry, I'll take care of it. And she does anything necessary to make sure that all your needs are met. And because of the great team at Child Health Services and the greatness that I've experienced, it has allowed me to warm up to not only Manchester, but everything else that comes with it. And I am so happy, elated, and proud to say that my son would not be who he is or where he is today without the help of the team from Child Health Services. Delani is doing great. He's comfortable. He's happy. And I'm happy because when we go to doctor visits, it's not just about Delani, but she needs to know, am I doing fine? Because if I'm not doing fine, then he won't be doing fine. So I am very proud and elated to say that this is the best health care that my son has ever received. So before I close, I would like to say that, like the old saying goes, people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but they will never forget how you made them feel. And every day, I carry a little piece of Child Health Services in my heart because they are my go-to persons. I mean, it doesn't have to be about medical, it could be about social, it could be about anything. I call, and even if they're busy, she'll say, I'll call you back, or I'll email you, or I'll get whatever you need. So I'm very comfortable, and I'm very, very, very happy. And I just want to say thank you to everyone in this room, because again, without you, there would be no Child Health Services, there will be no Dr. DeBrigida, or Miss Ann, or Kristen, or the rest of the team, and I would not be able to my son would not be at the place where he's at. So it's nice to be important, because everyone in this room is important, but it's more important to be nice. And that's exactly what I have experienced from day one. So openly, appreciation goes a long way. It never ends. And I think the most important thing is always to say thank you. And I'm saying thank you to everyone in this room, and thank you to Dr. DeBrigida, and thank you to Anne and the rest of the Childhood Services team.
So how lucky am I? How lucky are we to be in Manchester, where we can be this proud of what we do as a collaboration, that all of you are here to honor and to hear all the amazing things that happen. The neighbor-to-neighbor concept is what I've grown up with. For those of you who don't know, I am Lisa DeBrigida, by the way, so I think most of you all know me, but my parents grew up in Manchester, so the honor of being a part of this community and seeing where we are and how we continue to work in collaboration is just amazing. My mom is here today, so it's kind of cool. Everything about Manchester, I've just always been so proud about what we do and what matters. In thinking about the trauma-informed care that Dr. I don't, what do I call, what chief, you're just? I'm going to make him Dr. Willard for the day. But the trauma-informed care is a concept that isn't just about what happens when people are in these circumstances. And it isn't even just about domestic violence. It's about surviving a hurricane. It's about coming in and just being stressed out and, oh my God, it took us 3 hours to get to this appointment. It's about how do we treat everybody with respect and not think, oh wow, they're late again for their appointment, but maybe, oh my God, they got here. Like, this is great, they're here. How do we make that happen? How do we make sure that we see them? And I think that we as a group are trying really hard to be more respectful of all of that. We're able to do that because we have case managers, and we have behavioral health counselors, and we have front desk staff who are willing to say, okay, wait a minute, let me check and see what the schedule looks like, and let's see what we can do to kind of get you in. Those kinds of things make it possible to treat everybody with respect, and that's what this should all be about, and I really think that's what we keep working toward. Chris and our organization that we joined 5 years ago as Child Health Services, we're trying to be that all over at all 4 sites. I think we're actually going to be providing some medical care at the mental health center, which is a new sort of a 5th site. One of the concepts is that some of the people will come in just for mental health services, and they don't usually get their medical care. So it's within the next few months, we're actually going to have a medical provider that is embedded in the mental health center, so that somebody who is coming there and they're just coming there will be able to get medical care as well. So yeah, it's pretty cool. And they automatically become one of our patients, so that when they do need care and they continue to need care, that they'll be able to come to any of our sites. So we keep trying to do all of that, and it's because of what you guys do, and I can't thank you enough. The other piece that I think is really exciting about some of the things is the things we learned. There's a term, epigenetics. Epigenetics is a topic that wasn't even taught when I was in medical school. But my daughter is in medical school, and it's one of the things that they learn about all the time. And the concept is environment, genetics. We always were like, well, it seems like they all work together, and they do. And what happens is it's also reversible. So when things happen, when bad things happen, we can actually help families find how to be attached to their kids again, and how to have love, and how to have appreciation, and how to know that they matter. And that actually reverses some of those effects. So how awesome is that? What we do really does matter. It really can change that trajectory. So thank you for what you do. Thank you for helping us to be supportive. Keep it up, because it helps.
Now you know why. Everybody wants Dr. DeBrigida. Thank you all. We have a schedule to keep. That's part of my mission here, is to keep us on time. So I'm not going to waste any right here. I would like to introduce the President and CEO of Manchester Community Health Services, Chris McCracken.
It's great because he's trying to keep us on schedule and somebody needs to do that. But I need my cheat sheet and I'm gonna just throw everything off of the days. So if you'll bear with me for just 1 second. So I'm very happy to have all of you here to hear these wonderful stories. Thank you to our client speaker and obviously the mayor and John and Dr. DeBrigida and the team. The staff that are here are the staff that make this happen, and we don't stop enough to thank all of the wonderful people who do this work. Can you please give them a round of applause? I wish all 235 of them could be here with you this morning, but I think they're back at the shop for the most part taking care of patients, but several of our staff are here. Can you wave? So I'm here for a brief moment to tell you about a special message that I would like to share with you this morning. As you may know, over the past 5 years, the community health care for Manchester residents has changed, and it has changed a lot. 3 organizations have come together during that time to provide high-quality primary care, behavioral health, family support, case management to a diverse community of children and families that need those wraparound services. For the past several years, we've also operated under 3 separate names, which is a little confusing to manage: Manchester Community Health Center, Child Health Services, and Westside Neighborhood Health Center. I'm happy to announce that over the last 14 months, we have been working diligently with a rebranding team and will be publicly announcing in the middle of June one name for our organization. One name to reflect one culture, one identity, and one model of care that permeates the entire organization. As all of you know, the original philosophy for our model of care was rooted in the vision of Dr. Selma Deitch. She founded Child Health Services over 35 years ago, and you may not know, but she was the first signer on the Articles of Incorporation for Manchester Community Health Center. Over the last 5 years since the marriage of our organizations, we've been able to spread that model of care and the wonderful safety net of services that the staff provide to almost 6,000 children. 5,968, I think, was the number I looked up yesterday. And they're served across 4 locations of care, soon to be a 5th. Our goal is now to unify those 3 organizations under one name for the benefit of our patients and the benefit of our stakeholders. Although it would be premature to announce that name, so no, you're not looking under the tent quite yet, we felt today presented a special opportunity to share with you. Did somebody leave their lights on in the car? So we wanted to share with you, as long-term supporters of Child Health Services and its mission, an early preview of our specific plans to honor the foundational work of Dr. Selma Deitch. Over the last few months, we've worked collaboratively with family and colleagues of Dr. Deitch to consider the best way to honor all of the work that she did and the vision that she brought. Although the organizational name is changing, the model of care and the critical services that she envisioned and implemented are alive and well, as you've heard today, and growing. I'd like now to express my thanks to the team that developed the plan. Could I ask the following individuals to stand and accept our thanks? Dr. Deitch's sons, John and Rich Siegel, Dr. DeBrigida, Janet Clark, and Katie Burchett. I'm happy to announce that beginning in the middle of June and going forward, the location of care on Elm Street and the programs and the services we provide to children and teens at that location, which are also available and benefit all of our pediatric and adolescent patients, will henceforth be named the Dr. Selma Deitch Center for Children and Teens. what, I'm sorry, I've lost my place. We know that some of you who knew Dr. Deitch well as a humble person may imagine that probably that would not have been her idea. But we all know that the magic of this model of care and the vision and the advocacy that she had well before her time are owed to Dr. Deitch. And we think calling it by her name is the best way to keep that memory alive. Each year at Morning Matters, all of the proceeds from this event are placed into a fund, and that's dedicated to covering the cost of the services who are uninsured or underinsured and children that receive their care at the Dr. Selma Deitch Center for Children and Teens, and its programs that benefit all of the locations and all of the children we serve. Thank you for helping continue the tradition of Morning Matters and the vision and the legacy for Dr. Deitch. We really appreciate your support. And before I do anything else, Mr. Clayton, would you come up? I don't know about the rest of you, but I think I've been to about 15 events in the last 2 months. And guess who's been in every single one? I don't know how any of us would get through these events without the benefit of the history and the knowledge and the fine-tuning emceeing skills of Mr. Clayton. Not only that, but he has been instrumental for Manchester Community Health Center and Child Health for years, and particularly instrumental in our rebranding. And our celebration event will be taking place at his location. He's been working with our board, working with our staff, working with our management team as we've looked historically at this city to figure out how to carry those traditions forward. And this is a small token of our appreciation. Thank you. And now I'd like to invite Kathleen to come up and join me, and I'd like to introduce you to Kathleen Davidson. Kathleen is the chair of our board of directors, just began in her new position as president after 3 years on our team and 2 or 3 years on Child Health's team. And I would like to ask her to come up and talk to you about our future.
Good morning. I know we're almost out of time, so I'm going to speak really quickly, and I'm going to try to keep it under 3 minutes for you. For those that I haven't had the pleasure yet of meeting, I'm Kathleen Davidson, and as Chris said, I'm the chair of the board of directors of Manchester Community Health Center. I'm also an attorney at H. Otis in Manchester, one of our great table sponsors right over there. I got my start with this organization as a junior attorney, volunteering as a member of the board of directors for Child Health Services all the way back in 2011. I'll be honest. When I was first asked to join Child Health Services, I didn't know anything about the organization. And I said yes, mostly because I was selfishly hoping to meet some important people in the community and make some good networking contacts for my career. I quickly realized, as many of our long-term supporters here could attest, that Child Health Services was an amazing organization, providing much-needed services to the greater Manchester community. I stayed on the board of directors to help the organization, not myself, just as those of you that regularly attend Morning Matters come to support our critical services, not just to get a delicious free breakfast. Over the next few years, I was part of many meetings about how we could greater serve the community if Child Health Services joined forces with Manchester Community Health Center. One obvious benefit is that MCHC is a federally qualified healthcare center, which is a fancy way of saying it gets more money for Medicaid visits than Child Health Services could on its own. For those of us like myself that were not familiar with Manchester Community Health Center, our biggest concern was making sure that all of the many services provided by Child Health Services would be protected. Many of those services are not reimbursable by insurance, but are a core part of our organization. Selma Deitch, in creating Child Health Services, knew that in order to have a healthy child, you also need a healthy family, a family with access to nutrition information, literacy, and transportation. As we at Child Health Services looked further into joining forces with MCHC, we realized that both organizations had really similar values and goals, and that CEO Chris McCracken would ensure that Child Health Services would stay true to its mission. To be even more certain, the lawyers in the group wrote right into the asset transfer agreement that 2 board members from Child Health Services would be joining the board of directors of Manchester Community Health Center. I was one of those chosen members. Given how the agreement was worded, I was expecting that I might have to fight to protect the non-reimbursed services that I just mentioned. Not once has this ever been a problem. This is in part because Manchester Community Health Center and Child Health Services share the same mission, but also because donors like you provide the funding we need to make sure that those unreimbursed services, like ACERT, continue. At the end of the day, we do still need to pay our staff, and we need to keep the lights on in the building. We are thrilled to be moving forward as a more cohesive unit operating under a new name that will no longer confuse the community, while still keeping Selma's legacy alive. Now I turn to each and every one of you and ask you to do your part. You are already helping us by being here and providing your physical show of support. Now I'm asking you for your financial show of support. Last year I brought my parents to this breakfast. My 81-year-old dad asked me what an expected donation was. I'm going to tell you all the same thing that I told him. That is unique to each and every individual person sitting here. Please consider a gift that is a bit of a stretch for you. Remember that every donation changes the future for a child exposed to trauma or a child with complex medical needs. Every dollar donated this morning directly pays for care that a patient cannot otherwise afford to pay for. There are cards and envelopes on your table. You can pay by cash, check, or credit card. And people at your table or around the room with a large red envelope will receive your gift. I'm going to go back to my table and fill mine out right now with you. Thank you.
Kathleen just got the ultimate compliment. Hey, you didn't mess it up. So I'm going to give you a moment to fill out those envelopes and pass them to your table captains. My suggestion to you is one that I steal from my very good friend, Dr. Silvio Dupuy. Don't think about giving until it hurts. Give until it feels good. I always steal from the best. So we want to thank People's United Bank, our keynote sponsor, and we thank you all for being here with us today. The mayor and I have a very important meeting at 9 o'clock, and I promised her we would be on time. So I'm going to make my leave, but please take your time, fill out those envelopes. And thank you for supporting Manchester Community Health Center. We would love it if you would join us. We're having a planning charrette for the future of the south end of the mill yard, and it's going to be 2 sessions today, one at 9, one at 1. And this evening we're going to gather and put our heads together and find out how we can make the mill yard as accessible as possible as Manchester experiences this phenomenal growth cycle that we're all so proud of. Again, thank you for supporting Manchester Community Health Center.